Hey everybody, it's Tony from Adafruit, and I'm here with a video on Chromium OS on the Raspberry Pi 3. And if you watch my videos for a while, I've got the green screen set up back, so I'm just kind of experimenting, always improving stuff. And actually in this stream I have an upgraded microphone, so it's a shotgun microphone that's a little easier to position. So hopefully the audio sounds a little better and I'll be able to tweak it a lot more going forward. So let's just kind of dive in. And if you haven't heard of Chromium OS, you might have heard of something like this guy. So this is a Chromebook, which uses the Chrome OS operating system. And this is a nice one. It's a little Acer C720 that I've had for a few years. Very inexpensive. I think it was like $200 brand new, and you can get them for like 150 bucks or so now. And the big thing with Chrome OS is that it started out as like a very stripped down basic operating system that literally only ran the Chrome web browser. And nowadays it has like an app store and a little bit more stuff to it than just that. But for a basic kind of web browsing machine, works really well. And it's made to be like continually updated. You never really worry about installing, the latest versions and stuff on there. It just happens in the background. Meant to be, I think, more like an appliance than like a desktop computer that, you're used to with all the baggage with that. And the really neat thing is that Chrome OS is built on an open source core. So kind of like Android, where there's an open source version of Android, which is like the very minimum stripped down operating system. And then Google builds on top of that with like their extra applications and things like the Play Store and all of that. I think, and I'm not super familiar, I might be saying this incorrectly, but I think the same kind of thing happens with Chrome OS, where the core OS is free and open source, and then Google adds a little bit of extra stuff on top for the versions that they sell with the laptops and stuff on it. And so because that operating system is open source and free, the cool thing is people have taken it and they've made it available for all kinds of other platforms. So like you can run it on, I think most Intel, PCs nowadays. There's an operating system, I think called Remix OS, I want to say, that lets you run Chrome OS on, pretty much any PC. Or now the really cool thing, in the last maybe 4 or 5 months or so, I noticed a project called Chromium OS for SBCs, for single board computers. And it looks like a really cool project where the goal is to take Chromium OS, like the guts of Chrome OS, and make it run on a Raspberry Pi, or probably like a BeagleBone Black, or whatever the cool new single board computers are. I imagine they'd want to target those. And so it's, as far as I can tell, I think it's like just an open source kind of volunteer run thing. There's no big like corporate interests that I can see, at least. But it looks really cool. And so they've got, a few initial releases. I think it's all still kind of like early days. This is the 0.5 release that I'm checking out. So, it's not like 1.0. Don't expect to just pick up a Raspberry Pi, load this up, and then instantly have exactly the same behavior as a Chrome OS device. But we'll play with it a little bit, and I think you'll see that it's pretty close, and it's a pretty promising start. And, it's if you just need a device that can have a web browser, maybe like a kitchen PC or like a living room PC or something that, just have handy, like a kiosk on a desk or something, I think this could fit the bill really well, because it gives you, modern OS, modern web browser. There is a little app store, like you can install Chrome apps, it looks like, so that you can do more than just browse the web. But then it all just runs on $35 Raspberry Pi 3, or they even have versions for the 2 and the earlier Pi. So let's just kind of dive in real quick. First, we'll jump into maybe the kind of web browser view here. So not too much else to show right now, but I just wanted to mention the homepage for this, where you can download it. It's Chromium OS for SBC, for singleboard computers.org. And I'll put a link down in the description below when this video goes up on YouTube. And it looks like a real nice website. They've got all kinds of good info here. Tells you how to install it, tells you a little bit about it. They actually have, and I haven't looked at them yet, but they've got like videos on YouTube, which that's pretty cool. I mean, that's how people, are learning things these days. As I say this, as I'm making a video for YouTube on this, but this is cool. So you can see like people have checked it out. So there's some good info here. And then to download it, you basically grab the latest release. And the thing I kind of noticed, so they have different versions for different size SD cards, for 2, 8, and 16 gigabyte cards. And from what I can tell, the reason for this is like Chrome OS, it's not Raspbian. It's not built with the same operating. I mean, it's a Linux kernel, when you get down to it. But Chrome OS, I think, is built on Gen 2 or Gen 2 Linux, which is more of like a do-it-yourself, roll-it-yourself kind of operating system, versus Raspbian, which is built on Debian, which has a little bit more structure to it. There's like certain processes and things that are out there. long story short, from what I understand, things like resizing the SD card don't really fit into Chromium OS right now, you know, because it was originally built for like little laptops and stuff that don't have a concept of running off of SD cards like this. So I think you're supposed to pick the size for the SD card you're using, and that just determines how much free space that you have after Chromium OS boots up. You know, like I'm guessing the 2 GB version, we can actually look and see how much space is left. Probably not much space, you know, versus if you want the 16 gigabyte one, you want that. And they do have a separate version for the 2 versus the 3 version of the Raspberry Pi, so you want to pick the right one for that. I don't think they support the original Pi, but maybe they do. It might be worth checking out. But remember, that original Pi, single core, 700 megahertz, not going to be very fast, so don't expect much from it. You do also want to check the release notes, because these kind of mention some limitations and things. So this kind of mentions, let's see, like there's some improvements to the sound driver, the known limitations. This is good to check out. So Wi-Fi isn't really supported, like the built-in Wi-Fi, it's not supported right now. So just something to be aware of. I have my Raspberry Pi hooked up with an Ethernet cable here, so it's you know, what I'm going to use to get internet. But just be aware that might not work. Also mentions Netflix support doesn't work, and HTML5 video support doesn't work yet. I guess it works with Flash. I was trying, so like YouTube seemed to work for me, but it didn't feel like it was as fast as kind of hardware accelerated stuff. So I'm not totally sure if it's all hardware accelerated behind the scenes. But you know, just like I said, it's you know, it's a moving project. There's always new improvements and things coming as it goes. But I think what they've got so far is pretty slick and pretty cool. Okay, so to get started then, I just downloaded the 2 GB version, and I'm using the Raspberry Pi 3, and I don't have a shot of the Pi 3 because I'm actually grabbing the HDMI output of the Pi 3, so I don't have a third capture card just yet, but it just looks like a Pi that's hooked up to some cables. So I have my Pi 3, I downloaded the SD card, and I just followed the instructions. Let's see, I think they mentioned in the install here, so they give you instructions on Windows. You know, you need to use the Win32 Disk Imager tool, and Mac OS X, you want to use DiskUtil, and they don't mention it, but on Linux, you need to use the dd command. And if you're ever unsure, visit raspberrypi.org, and that has the best instructions. Oops, not PRG, that's a little weird. That has the best instructions I've seen for writing a Raspberry Pi SD card. So if you go to them to the downloads, and then they should have a link here somewhere to an installer page. Let's see, I know when you go to Raspberry, yeah, here we go. So you go to the installation page, and then right here, this mentions like, okay, so on Linux, here's what you want to do. These I've seen are the best. Like if you Google how to burn an SD card image, you're going to find like all these Stack Overflow questions, which aren't bad, but I think they're a little too much like noise. You know, go right to raspberrypi.org. These are the best instructions I've seen. So, okay, so that's all I did. I burnt the card and I booted it up, and let's just dive in and see what we've got with it. So let's change views right here to, so you're seeing the output of my Raspberry Pi right now, the HDMI output. And I've just got a mouse and a keyboard connected to it also, just a little USB mouse, USB keyboard, so nothing fancy here. And this is what happened when I booted it up. So it goes right into kind of the little splash screen setup. Really cool, pretty quick. I mean, it took like maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds on the Pi 3 to boot up and get to this screen. So it goes straight into it. You know, looks really nice and slick. I mean, this looks like Chrome OS to me. So let's just pick, and let's see, let me just change my screen a little bit so I can see this easier. Let me resize this a teeny bit too. So, okay, so let's go in and we'll pick the defaults here. So English, keyboard layout, you know, you can pick the layout. I've got a US one, networking. So it does, I guess you can go in and like change some settings here, but like I said, Ethernet seems like that's probably the most stable way to access this. Enable debugging features. I wonder what this does. Oh, that's debugging features are not enabled on this device. Okay, I don't know. I'm curious. I see a button. I want to press it. So okay, that's there. So let's click continue. This is cool. So it looks like it's doing some update checks kind of in the background. That's one really cool thing that, at least with Chrome OS, I know for sure it is just always in the background keeping itself up to date. So, you know, you open your Chrome OS laptop up and it's going to update, and it never nags you like, oh, hey, why don't you upgrade? You know, this update is ready. It's just there in the background, which that's the way all operating systems should be these days, it seems like. And I don't know for sure if Chromium OS does the same thing, because like I said, you know, there is a difference between Chromium and Chrome OS. But okay, so it boots up, and your first kind of thing is that you want to log in, and it's all connected to your Google accounts, I think. I didn't see an option to just log in with like a local account. So I don't know, let's see if there's like a create new account. Because I was kind of curious, like, can I do this without having to use a Google account? Let's see, looks like this wants me to create a Google account, so let's go back, and I don't want to do that. I did notice it does have a guest option that you can sign into, or yeah, down here, and that did seem to work, but I guess what the heck, we'll just sign in with the Google account, and we'll go from there. So there's email, and we go to next, and then it's going to want the password. So we do that, and then it's going to log in, and this is pretty quick, pretty snappy. I mean, it feels like a normal desktop operating system. It doesn't feel really sluggish. And again, it's running on the Pi 3, which has I can't remember. I think it was like one gigahertz, four cores, or maybe it's 1.1 or 2 gigahertz, but pretty quick, noticeably quicker than the Pi 2. Okay, so we'll pick the image. Sure, we'll pick that. So that's a picture of me. Grab that. And then it logs in, and it's pretty much there. I think this is it. This is the default. Oh no, it's telling me, okay, welcome to the Chromium family. This is no ordinary computer, that's for sure. This is a Raspberry Pi 3. Okay, so let's take a quick little tour here. So it's going to go through its thing. So it just tells you, gets you familiar with Chrome OS. It's similar to desktop operating systems. There's a start menu, quote unquote, down here, like the search bar. Okay, so yeah, that's where you access your stuff. This, I'm kind of blocking it, but down in the right corner, there's a clock and then some basic settings you can tweak here. So that's cool. Okay, we'll click next. And then, yep, okay, that's it, finish. So you start up and there isn't really much going on here. And let's see, if I move out of the way a little bit, you can kind of see in the corner, that's, the clock here. And so when you click that, that brings up a few more options. So this has things like your network connection, your audio, that type of stuff. Now I did notice with the audio, so you can look at it here, it's listing, it's doing HDMI audio, but I actually have hooked up to my Pi a little analog speaker, so I'm going to try and select this. Now I couldn't get this to work, but I didn't try rebooting it, so maybe we'll try and reboot it, but just be aware, I mean, like I said, it's version 0.5, so maybe some stuff doesn't work, but yeah, audio didn't seem to work well for me. But okay, the big thing, the star of the show with Chromium OS is the Chrome web browser. So, you bring this thing up and it shows this is basically Chrome OS or the Chrome web browser. So I can go into like adafruit.com and, you can load things up and see it's running pretty quickly. And the cool thing is this is Chrome, the web browser Chrome. So you're getting the latest features of Chrome. Whereas if you use Raspbian, I think maybe you can install a version of Chrome for ARM, but I can't imagine it runs super well in Raspbian. I have a feeling that this web browser is going to be a little bit better. So in Raspbian, from what I understand, they have a little more custom web browser. I think it was a fork of like a KDE or an older web browser that it's all WebKit based, from what I understand. But maybe not as nice, not as many features as Chrome. But this is nice. Like, this is the real deal Chrome browser, and you can see it's pretty quick. I'm just scrolling. The other cool thing, this mouse, the mouse wheel works on it. That's something in Linux I always have trouble with, is getting the basic stuff to work. But this doesn't seem to be a problem here. So everything's kind of working. Look at these tweezers, and this looks good. So that's cool. Everything seems to be okay. And you might notice the video might look a little stretched out. I think that's just my capture card. So I did notice the video, the HDMI output by default seems to be like 1680 by like 1200 or something. Let's see, if we go down to the settings, I think I can change this. And now I did try changing this and it locked up the machine. So not sure if the display settings are, totally stable yet, but let's just see what we've got in here. So, these are the settings. So just like a normal PC, you've got settings here. Oh, so it's 1024 by 768. Wow. Okay. Now I tried to increase this, but for some reason it cut off the bottom of the screen and I couldn't get to the start menu anymore. So you know what? It's working. I'm not going to touch it right now. But that's probably why, if you see the screen's a little stretched out or the aspect ratio doesn't look right, it's just an artifact of the capture card here. I'm looking at it on a monitor over here and it looks fine. It's 1024. And you know what? Maybe I can change this on the fly. We're going to, hey, this is live internet. Let's see. I'm going to try my Wirecast source settings here. and this could completely explode in my face here. But okay, I think that worked. Good. Way to go, Wirecast. So there we go. So now this is the real aspect ratio. And maybe I can move this thing a little bit since it's, maybe put my head more in the corner here. So I'm going to try and edit things on the fly. This is video production on the fly. Here we go. We'll kind of scooch that over. And let's try that. And now when I do that, hey, look at that. Okay, there we go. So a little bit easier to see. But this is Chrome. This is cool. This is, web browser. And YouTube seems to work. So if I go to youtube.com / how about Adafruit, and see, you can browse videos, and they do seem to play. Like I'll play one, obviously an Adafruit one, so we don't get in trouble with anyone. So let's go into the videos here. And I do notice a little bit of slowdown. It's not nearly as fast, obviously, as like this iMac that I'm using. It's got like a quad-core i5 processor, but it's not bad. Like for a simple desktop PC, I think this is perfect. So I'm running this right now. Now I do have all the sound enabled as far as I can tell. Like if you look in the settings here, volume's turned up all the way. My speaker's connected, but I don't hear any audio from it. So I'm going to try rebooting, and let's just see if maybe, when I change that setting, if that's what I need to do. But you can see like this video seems to be running pretty well. And let's crank it up and see if we can go all the way up to the HD settings. Here we go. Yeah, 1080p. Let's see how this looks. Obviously, I'm running at 1024 by 768, so you're not going to get the full detail of that. But let's see if this works. It did work with 720p earlier, so I don't know. Let's see. I might have just jinxed it by doing. Oh, there we go. It looks a little bit slower. I'm not sure if this is really working. Oh, I'm noticing the mouse seemed to disappear. Interesting. When I move it down, it kind of goes away. So okay, that's interesting. Let's close that tab. It feels kind of like the CPU usage is spiking. Now, one thing, unfortunately, with Chrome OS, it is Linux based. I think there are ways to get a Linux terminal. If I remember correctly, on Chrome OS, it's like Control T. I think you press that. No, that's a new tab. Maybe is it Control Shift T? Nope, that's not it. So I don't know. At least in Chrome OS, there is a little developer console you could bring up and do some basic commands, and you could actually install a full Linux build that runs on top of it. Versus Chromium, I'm not sure if that's the same. So, unfortunately, I don't know of how do you check CPU usage in Chromium OS? In Linux, you'd run the top command. Chrome OS, I don't know. Maybe you can't on here. So, but okay, so yeah, YouTube at 1080p, that didn't look like it was running so well. Kind of feels like it's not using the GPU for video acceleration, which wouldn't surprise me because the GPU is, on the Pi, it's a blob, the driver, it's not open. They opened up specs for a similar GPU, and only now have they started to get like a more open source accelerated GPU driver for the Raspberry Pi. So that's kind of why a lot of alternative operating systems, like if it's not Raspbian, if it's not people that work for the Raspberry Pi foundations, supporting it, it's pretty tough to get GPU acceleration to work on the Pi. But I bet over time this is going to improve, and especially if this project gets more popular, more attention given to it, then I'm sure people might be able to contribute and help it out. But yeah, that's basically Chrome OS. So let's just close the browser, and I'll show you a little bit about what else is here. So you click this, and this kind of brings up, your search menu, and we can go to the web store here, and this is, from what I can tell, just the normal Chrome app store. So I guess Chromium OS shares it with Chrome OS, and it looked like I could just go through and install different apps and things. So, this is showing like, okay, here's a bunch of apps on here, and like, the Keep app. So that's kind of a nice one for keeping track of notes and things. So we'll just click Add to Chrome. So, I mean, this is cool. This is pretty neat, and this is a real, like, slick, very well done app store. Obviously, it's not specific to Chromium OS. This is the real Chrome OS app store. But it's cool that you've got access to this thing. Okay, so let's install this. And I did notice when it was installing an app, it does kind of slow down a little bit, and it kind of locked up for a little while. So it seems like you do need to be a little bit patient with it and just kind of let it do its thing and finish its processing. So I'm just kind of letting it go. Like, it looks like it's kind of locked up or stopped here, but I think after a minute or two, it comes back. Yeah, there we go. It seems like it's okay. And then I think it takes it another second or two for it to finish installing. But like I can run, the Google slideshow. So this is Google Documents. So that's cool. You've got access to all of this, and this opens up, if you want to write a little presentation, you can go crazy with it. So that's pretty cool. And let's see if that Keep app installed. So I think you can bring up all your apps here. Yeah, right. So there's Keep. And so this is more of a Chrome OS desktop, quote unquote, app. And this runs in its own little window here. And there is windowing in Chrome OS. Like I've got this window on top of this other one. You can minimize and maximize stuff. So, it's all, it is a real kind of operating system. And over time, it's got a lot more capabilities and features. But you can see this is pretty cool for like just downloading a free operating system image, loading it on the Pi, like boom, it's ready to go. It's got a great web browser. You've got all these Google apps on here. So stuff like, word processing, spreadsheets, super basic stuff like that can work. The big thing though is that, and the big thing with Chrome OS and Chromium OS is that it's very cloud-based. So all of your documents, like you can tell, this is actually serving this spreadsheet from Google's webpage here. This is really just a fancy web app. So if I didn't have an internet connection, I wouldn't be able to do much on this. So it's not a complete solution for everyone, but it's a pretty cool thing. And if you saw, there's a really neat thing in the Adafruit store. Let's look at the, let's go to adafruit.com. The Pi Top, which is a really cool little kind of do-it-yourself laptop case for the Raspberry Pi. So if I search for Pi Top, we should be able to find this. And I think this could be a really cool mix. Yeah, here we go, the Pi Top. So it's basically a whole kit. And eventually I'd like to pick one of these up and see what this thing is like. But it's got like a screen and then, keyboard, touchpad here, and it's an HDMI-based screen, so you don't, have to mess around with a lot of drivers and things. And it should work with Chromium OS like this. Although I don't know for sure. I haven't used it myself, so you don't take that as the gospel here. But it's, pretty much all in one, ready to go. And the cool thing is, let's see, I think we've got some pictures of it where you can see, like the guts of it up here. So you put your Pi inside of there, and you're ready to go. So that's pretty cool. You can imagine you can make your own little Chromebook effectively using a Raspberry Pi and this Chromium OS build for you. That'd be a pretty cool thing. And it's, it's a little more hackable, like you can connect stuff to it. Now, unfortunately, I don't know. I don't think Chrome OS supports like GPIO access, like all the same hardware access that you would expect on like Raspbian. So that's one thing to be aware of. Like, as far as I know, that's not accessible. Like, I'm sure if you're a Linux hacker and you know how to get to the kernel core of this, you can probably figure out a way to unlock it, because ultimately, like, you either just need to talk to the GPIO registers, or if they've exposed it, the sysfs file system that has the different GPIO pins on there. But you're not going to like open a terminal and start writing some Python code that blinks LEDs nearly as easily as you could on the normal Raspbian desktop operating system. So just something to be aware of with that. But I think that's it. So let's see. Let me just try rebooting it real quick, because I do want to see if I can get at least audio to work. That was one thing I noticed that didn't work. Oops, I think I need to lean over here a little bit, yeah, to reboot. So let's see. This is powered down. Is it gonna give me a reboot option? Let's just see. Okay, well, I guess it's just powering down. So we'll power it down and then we'll power it back up and see what happens for this. So, and if people have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat as I kind of wait here. So I'm just gonna watch this and see. I think it's powered down. I'm giving it a second here, because you do want to be careful. You don't just want to rip out the power when the board's shutting down, because it might be writing to the SD card, and SD cards don't like it when you remove power. It can corrupt the whole card, which doesn't seem like it should make sense. It's like, well, shouldn't I just corrupt the file that was being written? But file systems have like an index, a central spot that says this is where every file on this machine is located. And if it's writing to that index and you pull the power, it could corrupt it, and then your entire file system is gone. So that's kind of why a lot of times people are like, oh, I pull the power out of my Pi all the time. I've never had a problem. And yeah, sure, you got lucky. You didn't pull it out when it was writing to that index file, but if it messes up that index, then you could have some trouble. So, okay, I'm gonna reboot the Pi. So I'm just gonna plug and replug the power. So let's see what happens. I don't think I've actually seen this thing boot up. So the capture card is still running. We should see the HDMI output of this. and let's see kind of what it looks like. And like I said, I didn't see anything. Like I didn't see the rainbow screen that you normally see with Raspbian. It just kind of took like 30 seconds or so of blank screen before I noticed it popped up and started with that initial boot up screen. So let's just see if that happens here. So okay, it looks like we're booting up here, so we're almost there. At least we've got some kind of a menu. Let's see, I don't see a mouse. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. That's there. All right, so that's there. Let's log in. Oops. Okay, so we're logging in. And that's pretty quick for a boot up though. So it looked like it was, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or so. That's fast. At least I remember, geez, my first Pentium, a Pentium 90, waiting for Windows 95 to boot up on that thing. That was rough. Okay, so it looks like, yeah, it's starting me up right where I was before. That's pretty cool. And let's see, let's go back to YouTube and see if I can get a video to play with some sound. Let's go to youtube.com/Adafruit. And one thing I can't test, this capture card, I don't know if it does audio. I haven't gotten it ever to work. So maybe HDMI audio works, but I'm trying to use, and if you go down into the settings here, you can see this seems to be the audio settings. Oh, it's still on HDMI still. That's weird. Okay, so I'll go back to I assume this is the native, the analog output, which is what I have a little speaker connected to. So we'll go back there. Volume's cranked up, so that seems okay. So, okay, let's see if we can view something real fast. So we'll go to the Ham Sunday. This is a fun little live stream that Lady Ada did yesterday with Woz. So they were hacking around with ham radios. So they're seeing if they could, I think they were talking to Travis Goodspeed in Pennsylvania. So that's pretty cool, from New York to Pennsylvania, obviously through a repeater, but that's the power of radio. So let's just dive in somewhere. Do we get, oh, I'm not hearing any audio, unfortunately. So yeah, oh wait, no, it looks like that muted it. So crank that back up. No luck with the audio. But it does seem to run well. Well, at least it was. Now it seems like it just stopped. Oh, interesting. Wow, it's so it's stuck on 1080p. I think it's trying to it's doing its best to give me an HD stream, but it looks like 1080p is just a little too high a resolution. So it kind of looks like 720p I was trying earlier seemed to run fine. It wasn't locking it up. So you probably want to stick with, oh, it's actually doing 720p right now. So maybe you want to even drop it down a little bit further. But like I said, this feels like it doesn't do video acceleration through the GPU. So it's probably using a lot of the CPU right now to do this. And so I have a feeling once they can get some of these drivers, that this will probably speed up and be a lot more usable. But it's not too bad. I think for like web browsing and stuff, this is perfect. Like, if you wanted a little PC for like kids to use, I don't know if I would hope Chrome OS has a lot of family options. Like, can you lock down what sites people can browse? But that might be interesting to look at. Or if you just wanted like a common PC that like all your roommates could use, this might be a good thing too. Because like I always hate, someone's like a friend is visiting, they need to print out a boarding pass or whatever. It's like it'd be nice to have a little handy PC that anyone could just pick up and use and go for it. So. Okay, so I think that's about it. Let's dive back into, let's see, we'll go back to the main screen and kind of finish this off. So let's see, let's go here. So yeah, so that was Chromium OS for single board computers. It's Chromium OS for SBC.org. And they have a release of Chromium OS for the Raspberry Pi 3 that I was checking out. So I just wanted to see, how it worked. Does it work as well as like one of these guys, a Chrome OS laptop? And I think it does. Like, it's at least 90% of the way there. Like, maybe not as fast for video, and it looked like sound had some issues, and Wi-Fi isn't working yet. But for 0.5 release, that's still pretty impressive. Like, it feels very polished. You just load it to the SD card, boot it up, and it's ready to go. It's got, a little walkthrough, but very easy to set it up. And the nice thing is it's, I think it keeps itself up to date. Like, it's not as much of a thing to deal with like, a Windows desktop PC or something like that can be. So that's it. Let's see, I'll check real quick if there are any questions. And let's see, yeah, I don't see too many questions. Let's see, what's the latest on whether Android would make it onto the Raspberry Pi? Yeah, I haven't really kept up with Android on the Raspberry Pi. Like, I know with the Pi 2, there were some people that were trying to do it, but again, the video driver was the big problem in that there wasn't an open source video driver that used the like full acceleration of the GPU. So I think there was a version that just used software rendering, but it was very slow on the Pi 2. And so it's maybe a little bit better on the Pi 3, but probably not much better. I have a feeling not until there's a good open source fast graphics driver that projects like Android and Chromium OS can pick up. Until we have that, I don't think we'll see like really good Android and stuff like that on here. I think Chromium OS can run Android apps though, or at least APK files. I know Chrome OS can run them. There's this tool you have to use that converts the Android app into a Chrome OS app, and then it'll run. And I think there's some limitations, like maybe it doesn't support everything. But I have used that on my Chromebook, and it does work. And I think over time they're probably going to add, more first-class support, like maybe the App Store eventually to Chrome OS for Android apps. So if you do want to run Android apps, maybe try Chromium OS. You might be able to run them, maybe not though. So it could work. Is anyone working on a full driver for the Pi? Yeah, there is. Eric Anhold is someone who works. I think he works for Broadcom now. I think he did graphics drivers for Intel, and then works on Broadcom on the Pi GPU. And he did a bunch of changes to support an open source version of an OpenGL driver using the full graphics acceleration of the GPU on the Pi. And that actually just got merged into the latest Raspbian release. It's under an experimental flag, and I've actually done a video stream on it long ago where I turned it on to try with it. So I would bet the stuff that he's done is certainly going to help whoever's working on doing some of the GPU acceleration for this. So I don't know of any timetables or timelines and stuff, but yeah, hopefully in the future, maybe a year from now, I'm sure that we'll hopefully be in a world where we've got better acceleration for this stuff. Question, why would I want to use Chromium on the Pi? What are some applications for this? So yeah, good question. Like I said before, so if you haven't used a Chromebook or a Chrome OS device, the big thing is that it simplifies it. So it's like a tablet or a phone experience where, you've got your app and it's like very tightly sandboxed. It can't do a lot of things, in contrast to like Windows, where you run an app and like at least in older Windows, it gave it full access to the hardware. And so you could get viruses, you could get bad stuff happening, whereas it's a little more locked down. And, same thing with Chrome OS. The Chrome OS started more as just literally only running a web browser, and it's expanded to add apps, but that is the focus of it, that, it's all about running a web browser on here and just doing basic browsing, which for a lot of people, that's really all they need. Like my parents, maybe if they just want to do email and like load up gmail.com, that's good for it. So like I said, I think a good use would be like secondary PCs. You have a PC, maybe you want to give to a kid or something that you don't want them like getting all kinds of viruses and things. Of course, they're probably going to complain like, where are the games? And there's probably not as many games on here. But that's a good case. Like a kiosk, I was thinking like a kitchen PC would be a nice one, where you've got it loaded up with like a recipe website, and you can just see all the recipes on there and browse to them. And it is cool in that it keeps itself updated. Like you're not constantly running updates and like waiting for it to boot up and install stuff. So it's a little bit smoother. Just try it out and see what you think of it. Like it's free to download the thing, and it's, as far as I know, it's all totally free and open source. So give it a shot. It's all you need is an SD card to try and see. So I think that's it then. I think we'll call this a wrap. I'll close the stream up. So subscribe to youtube.com/Adafruit. You can see this and all kinds of other fun project videos. Subscribe to twitch.tv/Adafruit. You can watch me do these streams live. And then, they're all archived on youtube.com. And I like to stream a couple times every week. So I do a Monday stream like this, where I'm usually like looking at interesting new software in the Raspberry Pi world. So it's maybe less in depth. And then Fridays, I do more in-depth streams. And so this Friday, or at least last Friday, I just wrapped up a 4-part series on how to talk to little Wi-Fi boards with your Raspberry Pi. So like sending and receiving sensor data between a little ESP8266 or something like that. So real cool 4-part series. Check that out if it sounds interesting to you. So this Friday I'll do another stream. I don't think I'm going to start a new series yet. I think I'm just going to do a self-contained stream. I was kind of thinking maybe like a little one-off stream on storing data, like simple storage with like CSV files versus more complex stuff like using SQLite to like create a little database to store data. So maybe just a little one-off, look at some options, because that's, you're building an app or a hardware thing. You probably need to store some state, like maybe the current state of the hardware, maybe a bunch of sensor readings. And it's something as a beginner that's not very intuitive, at least to understand, like, when do I want to use a database versus when would just a simple file work. So I was thinking maybe I might think about that for this Friday. And then the next week, Friday after this one, actually I won't have a stream because I'll actually be out at Maker Faire. So I might be able to do a stream before then, and maybe some live periscoping. We'll see if the Wi-Fi holds out there. So that's it. So I think I'll wrap it up. This is it. So thanks a lot for watching. This is Tony from Adafruit, and I'll see you guys later. I'll see you guys Friday this week. So take it easy.